In this tutorial, we're going to consider the typical transport solutions that are being used in a Scottish city to try to tackle some of the problems experienced specifically in the CBD or the central business district of that urban area. The city that we're going to have a look at is going to be Glasgow. And we're going to break this into two specific tutorials. This one's going to focus on transport-related solutions to deal with some of the transport problems the city is experiencing. And the second tutorial is going to look at some other solutions being used within the city centre to tackle some of the other problems that are experienced in the CBD. So we're going to start by looking at the solution of pedestrianisation, which is a common solution used in Scottish cities. And we're going to visit the particular area in Glasgow where pedestrianisation has been deployed. And the first thing you're going to want to note down in your notes is to record the name of where it's happening. So here we are in the middle of a road called Buchanan Street. And you can see from this road that apart from the road cutting across, cars are not allowed on Buchanan Street. Now, why is this a transport solution? Because what it forces people to do is walk up and down this road rather than use vehicles. It takes vehicles out of this particular area of the city centre. What problem does that solve? Well, it makes the environment a safer environment for young people, children especially, but it also makes it a cleaner, less polluted environment. It also, because it creates a quieter and safer space that's less polluted, it also then attracts businesses, restaurants, as well as shops, like the one here, Urban Outfitters, to want to locate on this particular road because they know it's going to have a higher pedestrian flow because it's a safer, cleaner environment. So it goes a bit further than just solving the transport problem by making this road a cleaner, safer place. It actually goes a little bit further because it helps actually attract shops to come to that location and set up their business there. Right, the next solution we're going to look at is the fact that Glasgow's had an underground for 120 years. So they haven't built an underground recently. So the underground itself has not helped deal with traffic problems. But actually what they have done, here we can see on Buchanan Street, is, if I just go forward, built a new subway access point in the middle of Buchanan Street. So this is a relatively new development. And if you walk down this particular set of escalators there, it'll take you directly to Glasgow Underground. Now, what problem does that solve? Well, because it's so easy to get to the city centre now using the tube, and actually when you get off at Buchanan Street tube station, you are arriving right in the middle of the main shopping street, you're more likely to use the tube than you are to use your own car to get into the city centre. So it promotes public transport, and it therefore means less people are likely to want to use their cars. And of course, cars are what creates a lot of traffic congestion in the city centre. So that's our second solution. Let's have a look at a third solution being used in the city. We have the renovation of both of Glasgow's main train stations. So we're going to have a look at the most recent one, Queen Street, that was completed only a couple of years ago. They have done the same with Central Station. And we can see a brand new front to this train station. And actually, if you walk into this train station, you'll notice it's a completely modernized space with coffee shops, areas to sit, and it's completely dry. It's also warm and all weather, so it doesn't matter what the weather is outside. We can see it's raining at the moment in this photograph, but this is a very nice space to sit and wait for your train. It's very modern. Now, why does that solve transport problems? Well, it makes taking the train to get into Glasgow far more likely for people considering, how do I get to the city centre? The traditional option might have been in the past, let's use my car, because it's the most comfortable thing to get into the city centre and I just find some parking. Whereas now, because the trains have been modernised, train stations have been modernised, and it's a comfortable space to wait for your train, it's easy to move around inside here, inside this train station. People are far more likely to use the train and not their car. And therefore, this once again reduces the number of vehicles in the middle of Glasgow city centre. Right, another solution you see right across the city centre is shown here. What they've done across the city centre is they have turned all of the roads into, or many of the roads into one-way streets. And what that really means is that cars driving up this road can only go in one direction. You don't get two-way traffic. Now, what this does is it allows vehicles to flow in much easier through the city centre if all the vehicles on a road are only going in one direction. It may be a bit more inconvenient for drivers because they have to then navigate that one-way system, but it actually means that traffic moves and flows much better, and there's less likely to be cars cutting across and having traffic and stopping that traffic. So it smooths up the movement of traffic, it speeds up cars, and it also therefore reduces pollution because cars that are moving are less likely to pollute the environment. It also, though, does make navigating the city centre much easier if you're in a vehicle. So there's another transport solution, one-way roads. Okay, to see another couple of solutions, we're now going to move down towards the southern area of the CBD, towards where the river is, and we can see some other key solutions. So here we can see that the city has built quite a wide range of bus lanes all around the city centre, around the edge. And a bus lane, if we just navigate down to the main waterfront here, is a lane that only a bus or a taxi can use. So you can see it says no entry, but here we've got a taxi vehicle and buses. So what it means is that any car has to drive on these two roads, cannot use these bus-only lanes. Now, what it means is that buses can get into the city centre much faster than somebody driving a vehicle. Now, the reason that's a solution is because if I know that getting the bus will actually get me into the city centre quicker than taking my own car, I'm actually more likely to use the bus because it's a quicker form of transport to get into the middle of the city. And therefore it promotes public transport, which reduces the number of private cars on the road and helps deal with some of the traffic problems. The final two solutions we can see right nearby, bridges and bikes, and they're two slightly separate solutions I'm just going to talk quickly about. So we have down here a brand new bridge, pedestrian bridge, being built. And why is this solving a problem? Well, this links the south side, which is a huge residential area, with the CBD, the city centre itself. And because there's now a very easy access point to just walk across into the city centre, rather than having to take a far longer route, you're more likely to use your own 2 feet to get into the city centre. Huge number of people living in this area are now likely to walk rather than take their own vehicle or public transport. So it helps reduce overcrowding on public transport. It also helps reduce the number of cars because people are finding it easy just to walk into the city centre. There is also another bridge just further up the river here called the Squinty Bridge. Well, that's what Glaswegians call it. And it's an additional bridge allowing people to get from the north side of the river. If I just come out and I'll show it to you. From the south side of the river to the north side of the river using their car. And it's just going to crop up on the screen here. There it is. You can see why it's called the Squinty Bridge because it goes across diagonally. So this is very similar. The difference is that, or the solution is that because there's more bridges. Bridges create congestion in city centres because they're choke points. All vehicles wanting to get across the river have to find a bridge to get across. And by increasing the number of bridges, so for example, we've got the Squinty Bridge here being added to all the other bridges, it reduces the amount of congestion on the other bridges and therefore speeds up the movement of traffic. So the building of a new bridge has helped increase traffic flow. One final problem a solution I wanted to look at was back where we were looking at this pedestrian bridge. And if I just go in there, we've got across the city bike hire spots. So if we just have a little look at these, we can see down there a bunch of bikes. And you can hire one of these bikes by just downloading the app. And there's a little information board here which tells you how to download the app if you haven't done so already. Once you have the app, you just have to rent the bike, pay your money because the app will be attached to your bank account or your debit card. It'll automatically send you a code which allows you to unlock one of these bikes. And then you can ride it for as long as you want. As soon as you find another bike stand like this somewhere across the city, and there are dozens and dozens of them, you park the bike up, you lock it to that new stand using the lock that's on the bike, and then it closes the app for you and charges you the amount of money for the length of time you were riding it. So that's how it works, these app-driven bike hire stations. What does it solve? Well, it actually encourages people to reduce their dependency on using things like taxis and buses for short trips across the city centre. because they know if the distance is too great to walk, they often would either take a decision just to use their own car or use public transport. But because there's these bike hire stations right across the city centre, people are likely just to hop on a bike. It's so easy to use because of the app, and then cycle that distance. That also is good for their health. So it's promoting health as well as reducing the number of people using other forms of transport. Okay, so that concludes a whole range of solutions. What you want to do, if you haven't done so already, as you've watched it, you're looking to describe each solution. So how does the solution work? And then explaining what problem is it solving.